Mom, Dad, I humbly suggest you save some money and shop Amazon for back to school. It's for my growth, meaning my body's growing at an alarming rate. And clothes you buy me this year will be very small very soon. Plus, the clothes I love today will be out of style tomorrow. But at least your wallet doesn't have to be my fashion victim if you shop low prices for school at Amazon. Hopefully this is helpful. Amazon. Spend less, smile more.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, we are going to talk about when your children have different personalities and how the activities that you do need to, keep in mind both children versus some people end up going toward one side. The child who's more like them or the child who's less annoying or something. So we'll be talking about that. Before we do, please do subscribe. In addition to the recent episodes that I always talk about, there's a whole bunch of other ones. There's about boundaries. There's about fantasy responses and communicating with your partner about what you secretly actually want them to do and how transformative that could be. I'm not talking about just in bed either. There's stuff about couples and money. There's stuff about what women want in bed, what men want in bed, etc. So anyway, subscribe and also join my Facebook group where there's a lot of interesting chat about stuff like psychology topics. So anyhow, and also follow me on Medium. If you don't do that, I am on Medium if you like to get your articles that way. So back to the topic at hand. So a lot of people have siblings with really different personalities to them, and they felt when they were growing up that the sibling always got prioritized, and the sibling may have liked academic subjects more and the parents approved of that more, or maybe the sibling was a good athlete and so the parents were always doing athletic stuff because they themselves liked that or they were proud of it. But either way, there are a lot of people that I see as adults that really felt like they got shafted as kids because their sibling was always prioritized because of the sibling's personality or interests being more aligned with those of the parents, or just more impressive in some way. If it was image-conscious parents, then they would really like to do things that were, let's say, going to see the quarterback playing his football game versus, staying at home and with you who really just liked watching TV. So, there are people who are literally, my parents never did the thing that I wanted them to do because they were always going with the sibling. So we don't want to replicate this because this leads to a lot of sadness later on among adults when they always feel like they were not the prioritized child. And this isn't the favorite it is the favorite in a sense of behavior, how the parents treated or how they allotted their time. But frequently these kids still felt loved. They just never really got the amount of time that the other kid got. And this can lead to resentment and sadness and also self-esteem issues because you don't really think that you're that important. Now, some parents today did grow up like that and they want it to be totally different now. So they really do this kind of one-to-one correspondence, which you don't have to make yourself insane. You don't have to make sure that if one kid has 2 extracurriculars after school, the other kid also has 2 extracurriculars, not 3, not 1. Doesn't really matter. We're just going to find 2. No, that's just as stupid, right? I mean, that's completely arbitrary, and that has to do with nothing in as much as your own anxieties than you're parenting out of anxiety. We don't want parenting out of anxiety that things have to be even Steven all the time because the world doesn't work like that. But even a first good step for a lot of parents would be acknowledging that there's a differential in how much time they're spending with each kid, because you are, unless you're super anxious, like I just said, you got your basically an internal spreadsheet tracking how much time you spend with each kid. This is, of course, easier with fewer kids. So 2 kids is going to be a lot easier to do that with than 4 kids. Then, you have really no idea and you haven't really thought about it probably. So it would be a good thing to do overall is to think about how much time do you spend engaged in each kid's interest. And, if you even just kind of think about it objectively, which is hard as a parent because you're so bound up in being a good parent. But if you think about it objectively, or you even like make a little list of the amount of stuff that you do with each kid, you may be surprised that it is really weighted toward one or the other. And also the rationales that you have invented for that, such as, well, like this one is just a really good dancer and can go really far. And so they need to get to 8 dance classes a week. And so I need to be there as the mom. Like I can't really send my husband because he doesn't know about dance, and so blah, 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 blah. So this stuff, like usually when there's like a big disconnect, it's because the parent is thinking that there are these like that a child is so talented that the parent becomes anxious about not allowing the child to live up to their full potential and their full talent. So if a child's very good at sports in some way, very good at academics, very good at who knows what, then the parent feels that if they do not give the amount of time necessary that they feel is necessary to this child's growth and development, then they are like really doing wrong by this child, and the child has this potential to be so gifted in this regard and go so far, maybe even get a college scholarship, whatever the case may be, that the parent becomes consumed with it. And if this is happening, it's also really good to do a deep dive internally in therapy or just on your own about what you personally are getting from the engagement with this particularly talented child. It's frequently, and it's not talked about as much, but it is kind of taboo to say that you're living through your child, but a lot of people are obviously doing that. Otherwise, it wouldn't be like a cliche. You know, people can see when their parents did it to them, but it's much harder to see when it's happening in real time between you and your child. You know, that you, for example, never got, like you were pretty athletic, but nobody gave a shit about driving you to practice, so you didn't get to maximize your full potential. And now when one of your kids and not the other is athletic, you're going to devote your entire life to driving them places because you on some level are kind of parenting this child in the way that you wish that you were parented. But then you may be also forgetting that if your parent had driven you to every practice like you wish that they would have had no time for like themselves, the marriage, the other siblings, your other siblings, etc. So it's good to kind of think deeply about what you are trying to personally rectify by this large time allotment to one child. Now, there are some situations, of course, there's not always where there's this like child who's amazing at something. Sometimes it's just that children have different activities and interests. And in this case, it is hard. Like, for example, if you're somebody who really likes going to sports games but really hates doing art, it's really hard to say that, you shouldn't get season tickets to the game and instead should sit around coloring. I mean, it just doesn't feel like something that you want to do. And there's multiple ways to deal with this. First of all, like parents are allowed to split up and do one thing with each child. Like the one who likes to color can color sometimes, doesn't always have to color with the child, of course. The other one can go to the games sometimes with the other kid. And everything doesn't always have to be as a complete family unit. Things can be divide and conquer. That's totally normal. Things just get bad when parents do that all the time, basically because then the parents never spend any time together as a couple, and things get way too child-centered. But it is certainly something that can be done, is to split up, and so then each child does get to do some of their thing. But also, like, you may have to, it really helps to be honest with yourself. So if you're somebody who, like, knows that your kid really likes art, and so your kid would really like to go to the museum, and you're not a museum kind of person. It's so much easier to deal with that if you lie to yourself, and you tell yourself that you're not going to the museum because the museum's too far away, the parking's too expensive, and you need a whole afternoon for that, versus like going to like play catch with the other kid constantly. So then when you think about it, the museum would be like, 5 hours that you could do quarterly, and you could still go play catch with the other kid like a lot, just like a half hour at a time. And then, but most people don't like think about it in terms of actual time commitment. They just hate the thing that they don't like. So they come up with a million reasons not to do it. And that's how I end up with adult clients who say, say things that are accurate, that like, I really wanted to go to the museum, but my mom would never, ever go, ever, you know? Or, I mean, and it's not funny. Like, it's funny for us adult children that are like, wow, like crazy, you know? Like, when you think about it, like, my expectations were not that high, and like, still, it like never, ever happened, you know? So, like there are girls whose mother never took them shopping. That's like all they wanted to do. Never went with them to the salon. That's all they wanted to do was have like a mommy and me day. They never did it. And like, if you would ask the parent would be like, oh, well, I didn't realize that was such a big deal, and or I was busy with the other sibling who had these other things that kind of I much more thought of as necessary. So you don't want to be that person, you know? So a good thing to do is to take a really practical view of this, like as a special thing every quarter, let's say, every, so it's 4 times a year or less. If you got more kids, more work, whatever, 2 times a year, you can make sure to do a special day with each child where you do their special activity that they would really like. And or every weekend, you could have a special hour or 2 with each child where you just do the thing that they like to do. So as I've talked about in other parenting podcasts and posts, this special time is supposed to be a time where you just do, and you could do this like 10 minutes a night. That's where I've talked about it before. It's a really good way to connect with your kid, especially a little kid, is 10 minutes a night of no instruction, no correction, no direction, no questions, just literally doing an activity that your child likes to do. Well, for older kids who have more established interests than just playing, then you can expand this into having a special day where you really just plan something that the kid would really like. Not what you wish the kid would like. So it's not like taking the kid who really wants to go shopping at the mall. I'm not saying you have to spend $1 million, but shopping at the mall can be like a range of stuff, from like spending like, $25 to spending like $2,500, and you could be wherever you want in that. But so like if your kid really wants to go to the mall and that would be their special day, don't convince yourself that they really like fashion, so instead we're going to go see this documentary on a big fashion designer. That isn't what they want to do. That isn't the thing. So the thing they want to do is to go have a day at the mall. So you would do that even if you hate it. You would just do it. And you feel so good after you do shit you hate, as long as you don't do that all the time. I mean, I even have a podcast or a post or something, don't do stuff you hate. Like, doing stuff you hate all the time is a good way to perpetuate or even start depression. But doing stuff that you don't particularly like sometimes because you're in a relationship with either your child or your partner or whatever, that's called being a good person. So do that, like even if you don't like something, you got to do it sometimes. And particularly if you're doing it with the other child. So your kid isn't saying, oh, well, that's okay that mom never ever takes me to the mall, because she doesn't like the mall. She does like, Trivial Pursuit, which my brother likes. So I totally understand why my mother plays Trivial Pursuit with my brother once a weekend and never has taken me to the mall ever, and or only takes me under duress and with sulking about it and judging the mall. Like, the kids don't think like that. They think either mom loves my brother more than me, or mom hates me, or just I don't feel comfortable in this home. Like, this isn't a place where I feel love and approval, and I can't wait to get the fuck out of here. And none of these things are good things for your child to think. So when you are thinking about what you want to do to show your children that you love them, it really should have very little to do with your own preferences. Ongoing, sure, if you like bike riding, you could teach your family, your kids, whatever, to take long bike rides. Great, that's nice, but don't convince yourself that it's something that they want to do. What they want to do is the stuff that they ask to do. And so this isn't like you should be doing that all the time either. Like, okay, never bike ride, only play. the board game they want? Of course not. It's a balance. But what I'm really addressing is parents who very much struggle with picking one kid's less preferred to them activity because they find so much more personal satisfaction in what the other kid wants to do. And this is more common than you would think, and you certainly know it's common if you're like, oh yeah, that's how my life went. And you may even be the preferred kid, or the preferred activity kid. So you may look back and be like, yeah, it's interesting because my mom always did drive me to dance all the time. My sister was always complaining about that. I just thought she was being a brat, but what did my mother do with my sister as much as she drove me to dance? I guess nothing. Like, that would be a very useful epiphany, because people that find it hard to divide things egalitarian among the kids usually grew up either with either as an only or with enough of an age difference, like basically 7+ years in the literature to be considered an only, and or had a hierarchy among siblings, like what I'm describing. So they grew up with either having everything done for them because they were the only kid around, or the youngest by a lot, or the oldest by a lot, or they were the kid who was in a situation where the kids were not treated fairly, so then it's very familiar to them to subconsciously, nobody says, I don't want to treat my kids fairly, but it is a familiar thing to have kids that do not get equal time or attention because that's how they grew up. They could be on either side of that, the one who got more attention or the one who got less attention. So people who grew up feeling like, oh yeah, people say to me, like, this isn't like a pipe dream, people say to me, oh yeah, my parents divided it pretty equally among me and my brothers and sisters, their time and their energy and their money and whatever. So that can happen, and I'm really doubting that those parents had a spreadsheet where they were like writing down all these activities. It's just a general feeling, and that's another thing to watch is your tone and your affect when you're discussing one kid's interest versus another kid's interest. So if the kid who likes reading, like, you talk to them for infinity time about books, but the kid who likes comic strips, like, you won't talk to them about that because you don't think that is like interesting or academic or intellectual. So this kid's always like drawing comic strips and you don't give a shit, but like you'll talk to the other kid who's like writing their own book, or whatever, or loves to read. So you got to watch also the tone in how you frame it, because frequently when siblings bully one another, they're taking something from what they hear about what the parents are actually feeling about one kid versus the other. So they will say the unspoken thing. So like when one sibling will look down on the other sibling's activities because they're picking up on an unspoken or semi-spoken, disapproval or contempt from a parent. So the parent may not say, God, you're so, to one of the kids, God, you're so lazy just sitting in your bed all day, reading those comic strip books. But the sibling picks up on the eye roll and the sigh, and then they say to the other sibling, man, you're so lazy, you're so useless, whatever. So when there is sibling bullying, which is an actual thing and bad, and is something that is increasingly catching the attention of, mental health care as a whole, that this is important and not just something to be written off, it's usually because the kids are learning something at home in how the parents think about one kid. All right, so a lot of information there, and hopefully stuff that helps you shape how you are parenting and how you're thinking about one kid versus another kid. And please do, of course, subscribe. And if you're a subscriber, please do comment with what you want my podcast topics to be. That is a benefit of being a subscriber. I put you right to the top of the list. All right, talk to y'all soon. Have a great day.